Hello everyone, welcome to my channel, The Offbeat Introvert. This is your favorite introvert, Raj. As I mentioned earlier in my previous videos, that I often dare myself to experience new things that challenge my social skills and gain new perspectives and learn different things. As part of that, I went through a new experience recently. That's what I want to share about in this video. Recently, I went on a solo trip to New York City in the United States. I know, introvert traveling in a solo trip is a really shocking thing, but I'm offbeat anyways. So I try to dare myself like this and I experience a whole different things and perspectives. Yeah, offbeat means that I often go out of track from a normal definitions of being an introvert. In this trip, I visited New York City in the United States for 5 to 6 days exclusively. New York is my favorite city, and the United States is one of my favorite countries in the whole world. Visiting the United States is one of my biggest dreams, and it has a long story associated with it, which I will tell later as part of this video. In this video, I'll mostly talk about the thought process that I had as part of planning this trip, the process that are involved as part of this trip, and how I planned and prepared the itinerary to enjoy this trip well. Being my favorite places in the whole world that I've been longing to see throughout my life, I planned an intense itinerary to make sure that I never miss anything that's important in New York. Because New York is one of my favorite cities, as I've seen in a lot of movies that show New York as a beautiful and people loving city in the whole world, and it's one of the busiest cities as well. I'm really glad, happy, and proud to have visited New York and United States as part of this trip. I also feel like I've achieved one of the biggest goals in my life as part of visiting the United States in this trip. I also did not achieve this so easily because I tried over the past few years a lot of times to go to the United States. However, a lot of things didn't turn out as expected. But now I felt like things fell into place and they made it happen. In this video, I would like to share mostly about my experience going through the process of getting the visa, procedures that I followed to book the attractions, how I prepared the itinerary, how I researched on places to visit, how to reach places, also how to keep this trip under a budget that I usually follow. I keep budgets as part of my expenses management, and I also feel like a crazy person who just trains so much over silly things like budget. However, I also feel budgets are important to establish responsibility on spending and making sure that we are being accountable on what we spend and how we spend on things. Comment below if you also keep budget limit on spending and keep track of expenses to make sure that you are responsible and accountable on where and how you spend your money. First, I want to share the story of how United States became my favorite country in the whole world and how my dream of going to the United States started. When I was studying 11th standard in high school, I was studying in a small town in a small strict school where I had a strict correspondent. He was a young guy who was around 20 to 25 years old, who just graduated from his university and took over as correspondent in our high school. He used to tell us that his life has become miserable since he is dealing with us on a day-to-day basis. He also considered us as crazy people who are hard to deal with. He often tells us how his friends are doing better things in their life since they graduated from their college. He used to tell, for example, one of his friends is doing his master's in the University of Texas in America. That's where it all started. I often think that it's really funny that how a small sentence created a bigger ripple effect in someone's life like mine. Being born in the 90s, I often saw people who reach America and felt that they have achieved something in their life. It was also a biggest trend during that times when I was doing my high schooling, where a lot of people considered visiting or moving to America as part of their work as one of their biggest achievements in their lives. Being from a smaller town, I always thought that it would be one of my biggest achievements to visit the United States as part of my life at least once. The very first thing to do as part of this process is to obtain a visa to enter the United States. Any person who is not an immigrant or a citizen of the United States must possess a valid visa to enter the United States soil. So, as per my research, I felt that the process to get the US visa in Netherlands is easy compared to the process in India where I come from. To my shock, the very first appointment date that I got as part of submitting my documents to the visa application was 1 year from the date of appointment booking. It was really shocking. However, I have had intense research and discussed with a lot of folks who have gone through this process to know that it will be possible to get earlier dates by frequently checking, as they usually open up recent dates as part of their appointment scheduling systems. So I frequently checked daily after my first appointment booking to find an earlier appointment within 3 to 4 weeks from my booking date. To my luck, I found a date in 10 days, which was at the earlier time slot. However, it wasn't like really convenient for me. So I kept checking and I found a perfect timing and perfect date, which was around 2 weeks from the actual date I booked the appointment. So I had some breathing space to collect documents that I can submit during the visa process. The main thing that I felt was the photograph, which wasn't really required as a hard copy at the visa process. However, I spent some money out of budget, which wasn't really required. I felt like a waste of money. The visa processing also had a nominal fee that was included as part of my budget, which is obviously unavoidable. However, it was nominal, so I was okay with that. I felt really lucky to have obtained a very earlier suitable time slot given that my first appointment date was 1 year from the date of booking. The process was really straightforward. I had to wait for some time and there was some queues, but I was able to go through the process within 45 minutes. They asked straightforward questions like how many years I've been living here, what was the purpose of my travel, and what is the current company that I'm working on, how long I've been working here, and they also asked how much is my approximate monthly salary to make a note of. Immediately they told that my visa is approved and I will get it within 5 working days. I was really happy that I was able to go through this process and get this visa at this quicker time. Till then, I haven't booked anything as part of the trip as they don't recommend booking any flights or accommodations beforehand without the visa getting approved. So once the visa was approved, I was starting to plan for the rest of the things and start to book flights and accommodations. Once I received my visa and the passport, I've started planning for other things from flights and accommodations booking. I usually go on trips or vacations during any of the public holidays in order to save 1 day from my holidays list. This time I booked this trip around Whit Monday and Whit Sunday called Pentecost in the Netherlands, which was around end of May to beginning of June. Then I booked the flights to the desired date. I wanted to book this on budget as well. However, the direct flights are too expensive. I found a cheap airlines which I can go to the United States with at least one layover, which was Scandinavian Airlines. I will share the experience of the airline in the next video. Then accommodations. Since I'm traveling on a solo trip, I usually prefer staying in the hostels because they are budget friendly. So this time also I looked for hostels that fit my budget and luckily I found one of the cheapest hostels where I have bunk beds to sleep in. Since I do not carry any expensive items and they also have lockers for my personal belongings, I was able to easily stay there. Then I started focusing on the itinerary. Usually for any itinerary, I look for some base itinerary in the internet which will have preferred format of categorizing places on particular days, and it also makes me happy if they share maps of places that are included as part of the itinerary. So this time I also chose some similar itinerary which helped me a lot. Initially I had a list of places that I must visit and I used the itinerary to sort them based upon possible ways to reach. A crucial part of a budget trip is the public transportation for the place that we are about to visit. So in this trip also I mostly focused on public transportation. However, New York being a new place and a new country, I wasn't aware of the rules and regulations. So I usually follow guidelines from the internet. I primarily rely on Reddit where there are a lot of user views and experiences as part of traveling around the world and multiple tips and tricks to survive solo trips and any of the public transportation related queries. Occasionally, Google helps for this purpose as well. The most convenient transportation mode in New York is the subway, which is like the underground rail, which is also convenient for anybody from the outside to travel. Since I traveled for around 6 days, I got a 7 days metro card, which helped me get the discounts of frequent travelers like a local as part of subways and other public transportations like bus and trams. I'm not sure if you consider traveling across the world as a luxury. However, I feel like it's one of the essential things to do to gain multiple perspectives, enjoy different cultures, and to feel the fact that there is a whole new world different from the smaller circle that we live in. Being an introvert, it helps me get a lot of perspective and gain different kind of experience and knowledge to travel around the world and see a lot of different things that makes you feel that you're living this life instead of just existing in a loop of repeated boring activities that numb our mind. I will also share the story where it all started for my quest to travel across the world to experience new things in a different video. In this stage, I will usually revisit the budget to make sure that I'm on track. This time, as the accommodations and the flights have exceeded budget little bit, but it's usually expected, so I was okay with that. The total budget I had for this trip is around 1500 euros, which includes accommodations and flights, which are the major part of the expenses. I also have other categories of expenses like attractions, souvenirs, food, and transportation mainly included along with some of the shopping expenses. The next thing to do is to finalize all the attractions to be visited, pre-book any of them if it's required, and finalize the device itinerary to confirm and plan the travel. Usually, I'll have a list of attractions and must-visit places that I should cover as part of this trip itinerary. That's what I did in this trip as well. The major attractions and places that I wanted to visit as part of this trip were Brooklyn Bridge and Manhattan Bridge. This is because of my craze towards bridges and how they have been shown on various movies. These bridges were really a great marvel and wonderful architectural monuments that are existing for a long time that make me awe and wonder. Next is Broadway, the street where there are a lot of dramas and theatrical performances happening as part of the theater culture in New York. Next is the city of Brooklyn, which is one of the highlights of New York. Then Manhattan. Manhattan is the major town of the New York City. Usually, I would want to visit most of the attractions within my budget. New York being a expensive city, the attractions are really costly. Since I was only visiting it for the first time, I wanted to do maximum out of my budget and to cover at least 4 of the top attractions as part of the New York trip itineraries. First out of the list is the Statue of Liberty, which is one of the international marvels constructed in the New York City, which is shown in almost all movies related to New York. Next is the Empire State Building, which is also shown in a lot of movies such as King Kong, which made me wonder. This is one of the oldest and tallest buildings that have ever constructed in New York City. Next in the list is the American Natural History Museum, which is one of the favorite places in New York City for kids. It's a great place to spend a lot of time with the kids. This is also shown in movies like The Night at the Museum, which is one of the favorite movies of all the 90s kids. Next, some of the places from the Marvel series like Hell's Kitchen, which was shown in series called Daredevil. Then there is another place called Harlem, which was shown in the series called as Luke Cage, which are all part of the Marvel's Netflix series that I loved. Usually, I don't prefer pre-booking attractions because I might miss the timing. However, the top 4 attractions are must-see, so I wanted to give a committed time to this and pre-book it. In this also, I faced difficulties while booking tickets for some of the attractions, especially the Statue of Liberty. Being a top-rated attraction in New York, I was not able to get tickets even though I tried to book it 1.5 months earlier, especially for the crown access, which is one of the exclusive access to the crown of the Statue of Liberty. Is a great view. I wasn't ready to give up on trying to book this and visit it, so I followed a similar approach to the visa appointment booking process here as well to find the appropriate time during my visit to get the visit ticket for the crown access of Statue of Liberty. After the attractions ticket booking, I've rearranged the itinerary so that all things fall in place according to the tickets booked and the timings of the attraction entry. I know a lot of my itinerary events and attractions are based upon movies, series, and sitcoms. I believe being an introvert, a lot of my inspiration comes from movies and series. Also, I believe introverts in general are usually inclined to confide in movies and series similar to me. I also don't think it's wrong, but everybody has their own safe space and their confidence circle to confide in. My itinerary will be so detailed that I will also track down all the routes and possible public transportation notions that I can take to visit the place and in a perfect timely order, including the places to eat and the respective budget. That will also make me limit all the interactions being an introvert. The next video is about the trip highlights, the places I visited, and all my original videos and photos that I took as part of this trip. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon to get notification for the next video. Keep supporting me. Share it with your friends that there is an introvert like me who dares and keeps life interesting. Thanks for watching.